Hello friends, welcome to my channel The Lens India Professional Photography and this series of this Mastering Lightroom CC. In our today's session, we will be touching upon one of the important tool that is the masking tool. We have already studied a couple of tools over here, and now today's tool we are going to talk about the masking. So this masking tool before October 2021, the Lightroom got updated. So this was called as the adjustment brush tool, and there was a slider provided, but now since this is the latest version, slightly the UI has changed. And under the masking tool, once you click the masking tool, you'll see that there are various types of maskings which are available over here. So right from the select subject, select sky, brush, linear gradient, radial gradient, color range, luminance and depth range. So before we get into the real life examples, so I would like to basically talk upon the brush tool or the brush adjustment tool. So the shortcut key to enable the brush is the K. So if you hit the key K, then the brush tool will get enabled. So we'll just take the brush over here, and now we'll see that once the brush is selected, this panel gets enabled, and you can see that there are two types of brushes, A and B. So there are two different brushes which are provided by the Lightroom. So the whole purpose of this is that while we are editing the image, we can simultaneously use two different types of brushes. And you can see that the sliders which are provided, like the size slider, feather slider, flow and density. So all these sliders remain same in case of both A and B brushes. So we can select these brushes by selecting on this A or by selecting on this B. Or another way to select the brushes is by pressing the / key. So if you press the / key, it will toggle between A and B brush. And the last option what we see, which is disabled right now here because we haven't done any editing on this particular board. So this is still disabled. So if we want to erase it, if you want to undo some work what we have done, we have the facility to erase the work which is not really as per our requirement. So let's try to see the functionalities of each slider. So this size slider basically allow us to change the size of the brush. So we can change the size of the brush by pressing bracket keys, square bracket keys. So if you press the left hand side key, the size will reduce. If you press the right hand side key, the size will increase. Another way to increase the size of the brush is by, if you are using the mouse which has the roller attached to it. So just by rotating the roller, you can increase or decrease the size of the brush. And the third last method will be by adjusting the slider. You can increase or decrease the size of the brush. So now when we want to do any certain adjustments, for example, let's drag down the exposure so that we can see the overall impact what is happening by usage of this brush. So if I'm applying a brush, so you'll see that the brush is now affecting the area where I'm brushing the on the particular this screen. Now let's talk about the feather. Now you will see that the edges of the brush are very subtle, and they are not that sharp or prominent. So if I adjust this feather to, let's say, the 0, so now you can imagine, you can see on the screen that when I'm adjusting the feather, there is a change happening between the inner circle and the outer circle distance. So the moment I am starting moving to 0, the distance between two circles reduces. So let's see what happens when this distance reduces. Now when I'm painting on this white board, you will see that the edges are much more sharp as compared to the earlier one. So so that means that if we want to have the sharp edges on the areas where we are working, so we can feather down the brush. And if we want to have a proper blending and where we don't want to have very sharp edges or the very prominent edges of the brush, we can increase the feathering of the brush. Now the third slider is about the flow. Now right now when I'm brushing on the screen, you will see that whatever the ink is flowing through the brush is now totally coming out of the brush in 100%, or that is in the totality. Now when I reduce the slider, let's say to the 50% or nearby 50%, So now you will see that when I'm brushing on the board, you will see that it is not coming as dark as in the one stroke. So I need to basically keep on brushing over and again, and then only the uh, effect is getting added up. So this is about the flow. So when we don't want to basically have the impact in one go, we can control the flow. That is, when we are controlling the flow, the ink what is going to flow through the brush will get limited. Okay, so that will get restricted in one go. So we need to keep on adding and adding so that we can create that impact. The next one, the last slider now, is about the density. Density is basically the nothing but the limiting factor. So now I'm keeping the flow to the 100% and I'm bringing the density to 50%. Now let's see what happens. Now when I'm going to paint this, so you will see that even if I am painting over and over again and again, the intensity of this gray color is not increasing. So since the flow is 100, whatever is supposed to flow out of this brush is flowing out. But since the density is restricted to the 50%, it is not getting added over here. So this is, density is nothing but the limiting factor for the ink what is going to be applied on the image or on the board. So this is the fundamental about the brush. Now we also have something called as the auto mask. So to make you understand what is this auto mask, so let me reset this again and let me go to some different image so that it will be easy for us to understand. So now let me use this tonality board, which will help us understand what exactly the auto mask performs. So again, I'm clicking the brush, and now you can see that there is a different tonality available on this board. So when I want to brush on particular area, okay, and when I click on this auto mask, and just for demonstration purpose, I will put flow as well as density to 100%, and I'll keep the feather to 50%. So now you can see that from the light gray to the second little bit darker gray, okay, if I want to paint on something, so you can see that in between the circle there is the plus sign. Okay, so if I start painting on this lighter gray, you can see as long as the plus sign remains within the boundary of that lighter gray, so even if the brush is spilling over on the second band, so the adjustment is not getting spilled over to the next step. The moment when I am painting, and if I slightly come and cross the border of this light gray, you will see that the paint, it started painting on the second band also. So auto masking basically helps us to paint precisely on the area where we are intending to paint, as long as the plus sign is not getting crossed to the other side. Okay, so this is how the auto mask will help us to limit our the spillover, or more than limit, we can say the spillover of the adjustment to the next tonality of the image. So this is the function of the auto mask. So this was about the brush, and now the same way, if we want to erase it, we can just click on the erase and we can just delete or erase whatever we have. So if we keep the flow to the 100%, in one go we can delete everything. So this is the erase functionality what we are using over here, right? So this is how the function of the brush is going to happen when we are going to select the auto mask. Now the next what we can say is the color range. Now color range is also one of the type of the mask. So when we select on the color range, and so now suppose if I want to impact a certain color, so I'll just select the color over here with the help of the dropper. Now my yellow color got detected and selected. So whatever the adjustments I am going to make, now that will only happen as long as it is only we are having only the yellow color. Suppose if I want to have again a green color, I want to have the impact on the green color, I'll press the shift key, and again you will see that the plus sign has got added to the dropper, and I'll select this, and what are the changes will happen, they will happen only to those two colors. And we can also see that there is a slider called as a refine. So the more I do it, the more it will basically refine its adjustment. So it will, so if I go to the 100%, it will spill over to rest of the areas where we can have the shades of little bit green or yellow in that particular color. So if we don't want to have that spillover, we can slide this refine slider to the 0 or to the minimum level. So this is how the color range is going to work. So now I'll just delete this and I'll move on to the next masking type, that is the luminance range. So same like the color range, we can also select the color where we want to have that impact of the luminance. Now let's take an example that I want to have it on a green color. So the moment I select the green color, the Lightroom has detected where all the green or the shades of green are getting involved, and then gradually I can change the overall impact. And you can see that since I have marked overlay, there will be some reddish tinge which is occurring on the image. So if you don't want to see the mask, you can remove that mask and you can slide on a little bit to have that impact. So this is how the overall impact can be seen when we are using the luminance mask. So this was about the quick fundamentals about the brushes what we are using. So I'll just reset this settings what we have done. There are other types of masks which are available. So I'll again go back to some different sort of the image, that is the whiteboard. So where I can help you understand what are this rest of the mask. So when we are using the linear gradient, so we can just create a gradient whatever we want. Now you can see when I'm dragging, the lines are not really steady. So what we can do is we can press shift and we can drag, so that we can drag the gradient filter or linear gradient in a very steady way. And we can also change once the gradient filter is up or linear gradient filter is applied, we can also change the tonality and the exposure or whatever we want to add to it. So we can make the adjustments whatever is required. So this was about the linear gradient filter. And then again, if we want to add something new, so there is once this mask layer is seen over here, if you click on this plus side, here we can add the radial gradient filter. So you can add similarly, instead of linear, you can add the radial gradient filter, and again you can make the adjustments whatever you want. So this is how the filter or radial filter also can be used. So you can add on the mask whatever you need based on your requirement. So now since this image or this board is not having any specific subject, or there is no sky in this, so selection of the subject or the selection of the sky cannot be shown on this particular board, but definitely this will be shown in the real life example when I'll be explaining it in a different video. So I think that's it for today. So these were the fundamentals about the brushes before we start the experimentation with the masking and the adjustment brushes. So stay tuned for the upcoming video, which will be more where we'll be covering in details much more about the masking and the rest of the brushes, color range and luminance range and filter, as well as the linear gradient. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching the video. Bye for now.